Today, I'm making my first ever loofah soap. So I watched a few videos and got some inspiration before doing this as it was my first time. And there's a few tips and tricks that I picked up that I think is super important for making this soap. I wanted my bars to be circular, but I didn't have any circle cavity molds or a cylinder mold. So all I used was an old baking powder container and I lined it with parchment paper. Super important you line it with parchment paper, especially because I believe the baking powder container was made out of aluminum and lye reacts with aluminum. Start, I'm just going ahead and soaking the loofahs. By soaking it with water beforehand, it will help the loofahs to soften and absorb the soap batter much better when you go to add them to the soap. Instead of filtered water, today I am using aloe vera liquid for the soap. And now I'm adding my sodium hydroxide to it. You guys, remember, you do not add water to lye, you always add lye to water. Make sure you learn how to safely work with lye before attempting to make soap. It can create some fumes. Make sure you have a good, well ventilated area. Make sure you have your eye protection and gloves on. This is all so important. Lye can burn your skin and eyes. You need to take caution working with it. Now I'm going to go ahead and weigh out my oils. For this soap recipe, I am using coconut oil and shea butter. I decided to do a sea salt soap for this because I really love sea salt soaps, but I think it would be much easier to work with a non-sea salt soap recipe on your first time attempting to make a loofah soap. Now I'm going to melt those oils down and let everything sit for a while until it cools down to around 90 degrees or so. Now I have added my lye aloe vera solution to my melted oils. Now I am stick blending it until it emulsifies together. You'll see it start to thicken up a little bit. Once I notice that is mixed well enough, I'm going to add my essential oils to the soap. For this soap, I'm using sandalwood essential oil and bergamot essential oil. I'm going for a little bit of a beachy theme with this, and I just felt like those two worked really well together. I am sharing this with you guys for learning purposes only. If I were to attempt to make a loofah soap again, there's a few things I would do differently. Although this was a lot of fun, I just love the experimenting of soap making. I love all of the different things you can try and see how different ingredients react and to see the way that the bars feel so differently because of the properties that these different ingredients add to the soap. As you can see, I added my sea salt and I'm going to blend until I know for sure all that sea salt and those essential oils are completely mixed into the soap. Now that I have that completely mixed together, I'm going to dip the loofahs into the soap batter and then set them into the mold. Please, if you do this, make sure you still have your gloves on when you are dipping those loofahs into the soap batter. It can still burn your skin. This is raw soap batter we are working with. So I am going to be adding French green clay later on, but I was hoping that adding the loofahs to the white soap batter would help the loofahs pop a little bit more in my final bar of soap. I don't think it made that much of a difference, but it was worth a try. The next time I make a loofah soap, I either want to shred the loofahs and add them to a soap, or I want the loofah pieces to stick out of the top of the bars using a loofah soap. I've seen people do that and I think it looks absolutely beautiful. To me, that is the beauty of soap making, is that as long as you're being cautious working with the lye, you can have so much fun with soap making. You can try out different ingredients and do things differently next time. And every time you make a batch of soap, you are going to learn something. So, like I said, as long as you're being cautious with the lye, nothing is that big of a deal, and we can just have a great time making soap. Now I have added my French green clay. I like to disperse my clays in a little bit of water before adding them to the soap. I find this is the best way to add your clays very smoothly to your soap batter. Now, finally, I'm going to pour this soap batter into the mold. It looks so pretty. I'm really excited about this. Also, this was my first time using something unconventional as a soap mold. I've always used my wooden soap molds that come with the silicone insert. So it was really cool to try out making my own soap mold. This sea salt recipe took a little bit longer than my other sea salt recipes to harden up. Normally, my other sea salt recipes take about 2 hours to fully harden and be ready to be cut with my wire soap cutter. But this one, I didn't cut until about 5 or 6 hours later. Also, it definitely was a little bit tricky trying to get this soap out of the mold. I ended up just having to cut the bottom off because I could not slide it out or anything like that. So another thing is once I got this soap out of this mold, I did not use a wire soap cutter to cut this soap. And there's a reason for that. So the loofah is not going to be cut through using the wire. So I really recommend using a knife. I used a bread cutting knife and I thought that went really smoothly. So here's one of the biggest reasons that I wouldn't do a sea salt recipe if I were to create this soap again in this way. As you can see as I go to cut it, at times the soap kind of starts to crumble, even though I am cutting it at a good consistency. And you guys, you know how I am about my sea salt bars. I love how hard the bars are. I love how well they lather. You all know my favorite oil for soap making is coconut oil. But I just felt like it wasn't a good fit for the loofah soap. But that's a personal choice. Obviously, you can totally try this too. These bars are now going to sit on the shelf and cure for a month. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more soap making.